While dragons are the supreme rulers of the air throughout most of the Warhammer world, even these mighty beasts must be careful in the haunted skies of Sylvania. Titanic vampire bats, known as Terrorgheists, soar above the cursed landscape, hunting horses, pegasi, and men with equal gusto. These foul animals inhabit the largest mountain caverns throughout Sylvania. Their lairs are full of skeletons, the remains of meals long past, which can be used as a ready source of bodies for a brave, or foolish, necromancer. Few grave defilers would dare stay long, however, for if the Terrorgeist returns during the necromancer's fell rituals, they will be drained of blood as surely as a pack mule. Yet as horrifying as living Terrorgeists are, they pale in comparison to their reanimated remains. Powerful vampires can raise Terrorgeists as undead monstrosities, completely at their beck and call. These creatures are incredibly difficult to harm, as their meaty bulk can regenerate from any wounds they don't simply shrug off. Their offensive capabilities are no less impressive, as they gulp down blood as greedily in death as they did in life. Such powerful servants can menace griffins, wyverns, and dragons alike, giving the vampiric hordes almost uncontested control of the skies when they march to war. Woe be to any who dares meet a Terrorgeist in the air, for their cries are death, and their jaws are hell itself. Just like other bats, living Terrorgeists use echolocation to navigate through the night sky. Unlike their smaller cousins, Terrorgeists are massive enough to harness their calls as a weapon. This piercing lance of sound isn't lethal in its own right, but a direct hit can stun creatures as large as a horse. A Terrorgeist's preferred method of hunting is to swoop down from the heavens and unleash a devastating sonic blast, paralyzing the target. This makes capturing prey much easier for the clumsy beast, as their poor eyesight and large size makes it difficult for them to grab mobile opponents. Once the target has been properly stunned, the Terrorgeist can easily carry the future meal back to its lair, to be consumed at their leisure. The screech of an undead Terrorgeist takes on a new, unholy power beyond that which it held in life. Dark magic infuses the shriek, creating a brutal barrage of sound and eldritch energy that flays the soul. Legend holds that it carries the screams of the damned, channeled directly from the realm of chaos or Moor's Garden. No matter the truth behind the matter, it's undeniable that the death shriek of a Terrorgeist is a fearsome weapon. Indeed, cowardly individuals caught in the blast will die from fright, while stronger-willed warriors will merely fall into a catatonic state. Just like their living counterparts, a reanimated Terrorgeist will often open combat with this terrifying cry. With their enemies' morale broken, the bat-winged monstrosity will then charge into the scattered formation, tearing apart the survivors with their ravenous maw and lethal talons. Of all the vampiric bloodlines, none are more closely associated with Terrorgeists than the Strigoi. These degenerate vampires have a certain kinship with the bats, viewing the savage, reclusive creatures as kindred spirits. These similarities lets the otherwise magically disinclined Strigoi reanimate the gigantic monsters as mounts, or beasts of war. To further empower the newly risen Terrorgeist, the Strigoi will often let them drink his blood. This profane sacrament mingles with the dark magic required to reanimate the creature, granting the Terrorgeist some of their master's power. Wounds that would normally cripple living Terrorgeists or monsters of similar size close in moments, repaired by evil magic. The rancid meat stuck in their jaws becomes supernaturally putrid and effectively venomous, capable of killing opponents with the slightest scratch. If a Terrorgeist is somehow slain, the numerous lesser bats inhabiting its ribcage will fly out as a nightmarish swarm, feasting upon any nearby before dispersing once more. When all these abilities are combined with their terrifying death shriek, it should come as little surprise that Terrorgeists are the centerpieces of a Strigoi army. They're the only act of truly monstrous necromancy a Ghoul King is capable of performing by themselves, and it does not disappoint. Despite these strengths, Terrorgeists are not without their weaknesses. Their hide is relatively soft and vulnerable, not like the iron-hard scales of a dragon. Additionally, a Terrorgeist's regenerative abilities, while potent, are nowhere near as strong as a Troll's or even a Cryptor's. Sustained attacks over a short period of time should eventually be able to overwhelm the creature, especially if the wounds are exposed to flame afterwards. Just like all creatures capable of such fast healing, fire slows the process down to normal speeds. This doesn't mean it's easy to kill them, Rather, it just means it's possible. In Total War Warhammer, Terrorgheist are present on both the Vampire Counts and Vampire Coast rosters, though they perform different roles between the factions. The Vampire Counts Terrorgheist, simply referred to as a Terrorgheist, is one of the Vampire Counts' few sources of dedicated anti-large. With a whopping 25 bonus versus large, poisoned attacks, and solid stats across the board, they're an excellent tech piece against enemy cavalry and monsters. They're also much more durable in game than they would be in the lore. They retain their infamous regeneration, but they also have 80 armor and 47 melee defense. This makes them pretty durable as far as large monsters go. I wouldn't necessarily throw them against dedicated anti-large cavalry or monsters themselves, but they do very well against generalist or anti-infantry large targets. Terrorgheist can also do decent work against infantry themselves, though they don't really specialize in it. Their Death Streak ability, which acts as a breath weapon, is decent at softening up large blobs. It'd be cooler if it only did a bit of damage and inflicted a melee defense and speed debuff or something like that, but there's only so much you can really do in game, so I get it. All in all, the Vampire Counts Terrorgheist is a good unit. I'm not really sure how it feels on multiplayer because it is really expensive at 2,000 gold, but I can definitely recommend it in campaign. It really carries the Strigoi specific army comp in particular. The Vampire Coast Terrorgheist is known as the Death Streak Terrorgheist. Now, as a matter of not really caring about them, the last time I played Vampire Coast was probably 3 years ago, so I have no idea how Death Streaks function in actual battle. But on paper, and assuming their animations function much like a normal Terrorgheist, I can say that Death Streaks are a strict downgrade. Yes, they have higher weapon strength than a Terrorgheist, but they also have lower melee attack and melee defense. Not by a lot, but still less. They might be able to do more damage in a blow against human-sized opponents, but they're way less likely to hit in the first place. Against large targets, they're significantly less likely to hit than a normal Terrorgheist because of that Terrorgheist anti-large. Otherwise, they're basically identical to the default Terrorgheist, which is fine. The Vampire Coast is much better at dealing with large monsters courtesy of their gunpowder units, so they don't really need a super stacked anti-large monster like the Vampire Counts do. Terrorgeists of both varieties can act as mounts in-game, though only for very specific characters. On the Counts roster, Strigoi Ghoul Kings and Strigoi Bloodline Lords can ride Terrorgeists. This makes a lot of sense, as the Strigoi are closely connected with the Terrorgeists, as previously mentioned. Oddly enough, the only character on the Vampire Coast roster capable of riding a Death Streak Terrorgeist is Luther Harkin. This is a bit confusing for a few reasons. One, while Harkin's exact bloodline isn't clear, it has been posited that he was once a blood dragon. While some parts of his story cast doubt upon this idea, such as his former control over the winds of magic, it's still obvious that Harkin was never a Strigoi. Additionally, he's never mentioned doing this as part of the lore. This might have been a creative choice to ensure that Harkin had some goodies to play with on the battlefield on CA's part. I'm a bit conflicted on that design choice, as I do enjoy big monsters, but I dislike lore contradictions. Really, it's a personal thing, but ultimately I'm more on the side of disliking it, as it made the Vampire Coast pretty busted at launch and just not a lot of fun to watch. With that bit of grumbling, we've come to the end of our Terrorgeist overview. They're a pretty cool unit, though a little confusing to write about. Why are they called the same thing when alive and when dead? You won't believe the number of sentences I had to rewrite to make sure I was conveying their proper state of death throughout the video. Hopefully it was clear enough for everyone. If not, let me know down below. Anyways, as you may have noticed, we're keeping our Spooktoberfest theme going on for a bit longer than October this year. That's because I've accidentally shifted into a once-a-week video release schedule, and I don't want to release only 4 undead videos a year and call it a month. So November will be Spooktoberfest as well. Maybe under a different name, like Spooktoberfest 3, Season of the Witch. Something like that. That's all that I have for today though, so until next time, this has been Sigmar's Chosen, signing off for now.